I would like to introduce our first speakers. This is regarding the potential merger of the South Dakota Department of Agriculture and South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources. We're very fortunate to have two representatives from DENR, South Dakota DENR, with us today. Jean Goodman, she is the Director of Environmental Services for DENR, and then Brian Walsh is the Public Affairs Director for DENR. And they're here to talk about that potential merger as well as what it means for South Dakota, the citizens and stakeholders of South Dakota. So with that, I will hand it over to Jean.
Good morning, and thank you, John, for that introduction. I appreciate that, and I also appreciate the opportunity to kick everything off this morning and give you some information, basically to help with your theme a little bit, the legacy of water and what we're moving forward with into the future. And then I'm going to turn it over to Brian, who is our Director of Public Affairs, and he's going to go into some more details about that merger. But I'm going to share my screen here. Did that come through okay?
It is not shared yet. Yep, there we're good.
All right, thank you very much. Just to give you a little background about me and my current position, I have actually worked for the department for over 40 years, spending about 18 years in groundwater quality. I spent 3 years, a 3-year stint with the air quality program, 12 years in the surface water quality program, and then the past 7 years I have had the position of chief engineer in our water rights program. So many of my comments today you will recognize as reflecting on some of the experiences that I've seen for the past 4 decades. As I look at your theme and water legacy and informing the future with lessons from the past, I just went and did an internet search on what the definition of legacy is, and obviously it's a bequest or anything handed down from the past, as from an ancestor or a predecessor. And don't get me wrong, I don't consider to be your ancestor this morning or anything like that, but I have been around a long time. In fact, I think they look for somebody who had been here the longest and experienced a few things in water. So I'm going to use that today to talk a little bit about the history of our department, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources and its predecessors, some of the things that have been learned and the results that have come out of those experiences, and then some of the legacies that the department has left and that we can look forward to carrying on. First of all, a little history of South Dakota and the state water management protection. The history of managing the state's water actually predates statehood and documents the agencies that have been involved in that. The Dakota Territory Legislature actually first addressed water issues when it enacted laws to search for and register current and existing surface water rights in the 1880s. The state legislature then in 1893 established the South Dakota Geological Survey to generate information on the state's geologic and hydrologic resources. Water rights law under the purview of the state engineer was passed in 1905 and then further updated in 1907. These laws lay the foundation for the legal use of water, which remains the basis for our water rights law today. The first septic system regulations and other standards for works of sanitary significance were developed in the 1950s by the Department of Health. Then the management of the use of groundwater was given legislatively to the chief engineer and the Water Rights Commission in 1955. This was very important. Many states did not recognize groundwater as a waters of the state to be regulated for water use, but South Dakota did in 1955, which has been very important to the way we manage our groundwater here. And in the 70s then, the legislature added what we call our anti-mining law for groundwater. Following the federal government's lead in the 70s, the state developed the corresponding legislation under the Department of Health and what was then the Environmental Protection Agency in the state including the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and the Safe Drinking Water Act. Also in the 70s, the Department of Natural Resource Development prepared the State Water Plan and worked with other entities to implement state policy on water resources management to serve as the principal guide for state policies and priorities and to identify areas for project assistance. When Governor Janklow took office in 1979, he pulled all the state water programs and environmental protection programs together into one department. That included the South Dakota Geological Survey, but then we were named the Department of Water and Natural Resources. Following the adoption of Governor Mickelson's Centennial Environmental Program Act in the late 80s and early 90s, which basically added legislation which recognized wellhead protection program efforts, sampling of new domestic wells, the Groundwater Research and Public Education Fund, the Solid Waste Management Plan, mining and reclamation programs, all of those things along with other issues that we were dealing with. The department was then renamed in 1991 as the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, which we have been ever since. So what are the results? What's happened through all of those decades of work with water and the environment? Well, the results of this is over 140 years of history. Too many issues or too many items that have happened, too many things that have happened to mention, obviously, but just a few that I'd like to leave with you today. Hundreds of geologic and hydrologic studies have been completed and published by the South Dakota Geological Survey, including the county studies done in cooperation with the counties, the U.S. Geological Survey, and help from the water development districts. There was a big for water quality study in the 80s that focused primarily on potential pollution sources up to groundwater, such as wastewater lagoon systems. Then the legislature sanctioned a 3-year pesticide and fertilizer groundwater study in the mid-80s. And then there was a 10-year federal rural clean water program study that was completed in the early 80s and 90s and focused on sampling groundwater, shallow groundwater, and the movement of farm chemicals to the soil profile. This latter study was a cooperative effort with SDSU Water Resources Institute, the Cooperative Extension Service, USDA, 3 county conservation districts, EPA Non-Point Source Office, and DENR. This study also looked at changing farming practices and chemical application practices and the resulting water quality. This led to identifying best management practices to address non-point source pollution. So we could take that and together with the integrated report that's done every 2 years, could identify impaired water bodies and target funds to implement conservation practices and target those for priority areas. There were new standards and new methods of wastewater treatment for South Dakota municipalities developed during this time. Regulations to collect and treat leachate in constructed engineered landfills were developed. With the interest growing in new concentrated animal feeding operations, criteria for containing the waste and wastewater and safely land applying the minority use of the nutrient value has also resulted in over 400 new and existing large livestock facilities, keeping their wastewater on the fields and used for nutrients and out of the waterways. So where does that leave us with legacies? What are the legacies left by all of this work? Over the past 140 years, there's been several legacies bequeathed to the state of South Dakota. Over 40 years, and in some cases 60 years, we have water level data from over 1,600 observation wells in the state. Many of them were put in as early as 1955. That's resulted in monitoring the water levels of the state's aquifers with no mining of groundwater occurring in the state, unlike some of other Western states. We have developed water quality monitoring networks in streams, lakes, and groundwater, which you're going to hear about from state geologist Tim Kalman this afternoon. We have cooperated funding-wise with the USGS on their stream gauging monitoring network, and we've established state continuous stream gauging stations as well. We monitor lake levels in over 100 lakes twice a year. We require water monitoring near potential pollution sources and permitted facilities. We classify water bodies for specific uses and establish appropriate water quality standards to protect those uses, supporting through funding and legislation the development of rural water systems to supply safe drinking water to both the rural and urban areas of South Dakota. We've reached nearly a 100% compliance rate for drinking water supplies in the state. We've established minimum standards for petroleum storage tanks to keep the petroleum in the tanks and out of our environment. And lastly, we've established a dedicated water fund to support safe drinking water, wastewater, and solid waste management facility projects. Why are these legacies possible? I think, and what I would like to leave you with today is because we have learned from history. We protect what we have, we keep it, and we make it better. But we do not lose it because we apply the lessons that have been learned from the past. Obviously, no one does this alone. There is cooperation. We're too small of a state not to cooperate with the people and the entities that have a stake in our safe water here. We work with partner agencies, businesses, industry, research organizations, consultants, and many, many others. We live in a point and click world, but living in that world, we need to learn where the data came from and how it was obtained. We need to learn from history to leave a legacy, and there is so much more to do. And with that, I am going to end my comments, and I'm going to turn it over to Brian Walsh to talk about the upcoming merger, and where we go from here. But again, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to talk about some of the things that I've worked on in my many years with the department. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Jean. This is Brian. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully we are up and running. Do you see me?
You're
Excellent.
good.
Thank you. So, Jean, that was great. You're probably wondering who I am. Well, I'm Brian Walsh. I'm the Public Affairs Director with DENR. I have been with the agency for 17 and a half years, working as a hydrologist, environmental scientist in the groundwater quality program, worked on pipeline projects, spills, source water activities. In 2018, I took over the Public Information Officer duties for DENR. And then just recently here, I've joined Secretary Roberts' team as the Public Affairs Director. So what am I here to talk about? Well, Jean gave us an excellent history of DENR and what we've done in the past. And I want to talk about how we're going to build on that, what we've done, and what the future looks like moving forward. And that future is the South Dakota Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. I'm going to tell you just a quick story. So at the end of August, Secretary Roberts called sort of an unexpected leadership team meeting. And during that meeting, he announced the plan to merge the Department of Ag and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And as I was walking back to my cube afterwards, I thought to myself, man, if you had given me 10 guesses as to what the announcement might be at that meeting, I wouldn't have got that one. It wouldn't have made my list. But that said, as we work through the process and as things start to come together, it really does make a lot of sense. So as a means of communicating that to you this morning, I'm going to just walk through some frequently asked questions that we get about the merger, and hit the highlights, and then we'll be available for some discussion, hopefully at the end. The first question we often get is who decided to merge the two agencies? Well, that decision came from Governor Noem and her team. And the natural follow-up question to that is, does the governor have the authority to merge two departments together? And of course, the answer is yes. The South Dakota Constitution gives the governor the authority to reorganize her executive branch for efficient administration, and that's the process we're working through now. What's the merger schedule? Well, on August 27th of 2020, Governor Noem publicly announced her plan to merge the two agencies. The first sort of key step to that happened on September 8th when DENR Secretary Hunter Roberts became the interim Secretary of the Department of Ag. The next step in January 2020, Governor Nome will issue an executive order merging the two agencies. And that order will become effective 90 days after the executive order is issued. So on or about April 1st, 2021 is when that executive order will take effect. Who will run the new department? Well, that will be Secretary Hunter Roberts. He will be the new DANR Cabinet Secretary. I've worked with Secretary Roberts for a few times before he came to DENR, and I've been working with him more over the past year. And with his state government and energy and environmental policy experience and his agricultural background, he is a fifth generation farmer and rancher who works in Stanley County. I really do believe he's the right person to lead us through this transition and into our future as DANR. And I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to be part of the process. The big question, why would we do this, right? What's the purpose for the change? First thing to remember that is early on in Governor Nome's tenure as governor, she moved the ag business development responsibilities out of the secretary or out of the Department of Agriculture into the Governor's Office of Economic Development. With that done, both the agencies, DENR and Ag, are largely regulatory in nature, along with their overlapping conservation and natural resource protection goals. And I think we all know that agricultural conservation and natural resource protection, when you have good collaboration and do it right, really go hand in hand. So what this merger does is it places our agriculture and environmental experts into one department, which we hope will lead to less bureaucracy, more collaboration, and better outcomes for the environment, for agriculture, and of all of South Dakota. But you may say, you took the word environment out of the title, right? So that clearly implies some perhaps lack of interest in protecting the environment. And the reality is that several names were considered. Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources was the best fit, but not including the word environment in the title really in no way reflects the governor's or DENR's strong commitment to protect South Dakota's environment and natural resources. As we saw in Gene's presentation, DENR, Water Resource Protection, Environmental Protection in South Dakota, those agencies have had many names over the years. And ultimately, what's more important is what we do, right, with those agencies. So what will we do? Will the new department continue to be an advocate for agriculture? The answer is yes. The Lieutenant Governor, who had been serving as the interim Secretary of the Department of Ag, will continue to work closely with Secretary Roberts and will serve as an ambassador for agriculture and a liaison between the commodity groups and the governor's team. Also, while doing that, the department will absolutely take environmental protection seriously. The merger will not reduce or limit the environmental protections we have in place today, and DANR will continue to implement and enforce DENR's long-standing regulatory programs. Ultimately, DANR's role will be to review, develop, and enforce agriculture and environmental regulations that make sense for South Dakota, while continuing to implement our conservation, watershed protection, and environmental funding programs. Our responsibilities really remain the same. We'll just be doing them together moving forward. So how is this merger going to affect our customers, the industry, the producers, the regulated communities? Well, in the short term, we don't want the merger to cause delays for anyone. So please continue to work with your normal contacts at the Department of Agriculture and DENR during the transition process. Long term, by merging the two agencies into a single department, our customers and all the regulated folks, the industry, will have a one-stop shop for their regulatory, conservation, environmental funding needs. Our intent is to improve customer service, create efficiencies, and continue to preserve and protect agriculture, the environment, and our natural resources. So we're going down the road. The train has left the station. The merger is in the works. What are we working on right now? Right now, we're focusing on organizational structure, looking at what the best fits will be for the organization as we move forward as one agency, looking for synergies, places we can cross-train and overlap and create some efficiencies. We're also working on the budget because our intent is to provide the legislature with a unified DA&R budget this year so that we have a single agency budget ready for FY 2022. That said, have we made any changes yet? The answer is yes. DENR's Watershed Protection Program has been merged into the Department of Agriculture's Resource Conservation and Forestry Division. These programs already work together. They have similar goals and overlapping partnerships. So it really made sense to us to combine these programs into a single division to implement our on-the-ground conservation practices. Bill Smith, who many of you may know, is the current division director for Department of Ag's Resource Conservation and Forestry Division, and he will continue on as the director in the new division. We're excited about that change. We think it's going to create a lot of great opportunities. We have other changes that are coming. We're not quite ready to move forward publicly with those, so there will be more information to come as we move forward. But I can tell you that we're excited about the merger. You know, it's change, and change can always be a challenge, but I think whenever we're challenged, it's the only way that we really get better, right, is to make a change, and we're excited to go through this process. That's all I have for direct comments. I will encourage you that if you have questions that we don't get answered today, please reach out to me. My contact information is on this slide, and we will work to get you whatever answers we can. With that, I would certainly be happy, and Gene too, to entertain any questions you have and have a little discussion. Thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thank you so much, Gene and Brian. We do have a number of questions. And the first question, see, we got some in the chat and some in the Q&A. So first question is regarding the agency's monitoring of lakes and streams. Are there any specific efforts by the state to clean the water in lakes?
Thank you for that question. This is Jean. I will attempt an answer at that one. Basically, the way our watershed program works on projects that after they identify an impaired water body, they work with either the watershed, the conservation districts, any entity that shows interest in establishing a project. Funding then is a funding package is developed to implement, if it's been identified what the sources of the problems in the lake are identified, they can work on toward a project and toward funding of that project.
Great, thank you so much. Next question, and I'll just throw in a reminder to attendees to put your questions in the Q&A rather than the chat. It just helps me as a moderator and the speakers kind of keep track of what's been answered. So the next question is, how many other states have a consolidated Department of Agriculture and Environmental Protection / Natural Resources? And kind of a follow-up to that, were there any other states that you used as a model or you're able to model this merger after?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I'll answer that. I did some looking into that. There are a couple other states. I wouldn't say it's a lot that have that, but we did not model our merger after any other state. We were focused on trying to put together an agency that was going to work best for South Dakota. So, yep, there aren't a lot of states that have a combined agency, but again, we think this is the plan that's going to work best for us.
Thank you. Speaking of division directors, the DENR Division of Technical and Financial Assistance has been without a leader for several years. Will this division remain? And if so, when will a director be designated?
Sure, I'll respond to that. So that's, part of this process and what we're looking at doing as we transition is reorganizing all the two departments into a single department. I believe that division is going to continue to move forward, and obviously their responsibilities are going to continue to move forward. And I can't give you a date for when a division director might be assigned. We're still evaluating those things, but I just want to assure you that the responsibilities of that division are not going away.
Thank you. All right, next question is kind of related to the mechanics or the logistics. So thinking about a potential duality, but within the department of how will the new department both promote and regulate itself or industries that it works with?
Right. So, and we get that question a lot. And I think the thing to remember is the primary responsibilities for promoting agriculture development have been moved to the Governor's Office of Economic Development. So the DANR's role is going to be to preserve and protect agriculture, the environment, and natural resources through regulation, through funding programs, through conservation programs. I think we can all understand the need for having successful agriculture in the state of South Dakota. It's clearly the largest industry in the state. But our role at DENR is going to be to work to make regulation and implement programs that make sense for South Dakota and help us preserve and protect those resources, agriculture, environment, all of our natural resources moving forward.
Excellent.
If I could add to that, I just want to reiterate that we have not only regulatory requirements for all industries and that may impact the environment on our state statutes, but we also have obligations to the Environmental Protection Agency for programs that we have been delegated. For instance, the Clean Water Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act. We still have all of those regulations that we need to implement and to enforce on the state level. Thank you.
Thanks. And then related to that is, so I guess, is there any way to, so obviously you're doing a lot of communication about the merger, coming to speak today, for example, and we appreciate that. Is there any other way that you can make sure public perception is not that, you know, the new merged department has those historical priorities in place as well as the new priorities?
Sure. Secretary Roberts has been doing lots and lots of media interviews on the topic to try to spread the message a little bit. One thing we're in the process of doing, as I've said, is some of that reorganization, and we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves with commenting on that until we have the organization in place. And I think we're getting close on that, and I would expect over the next few weeks there'll be some more announcements as to how the new agency is developing. And again, opportunities like this, I sure appreciate the opportunity to get out, answer questions, and speak to you about how the DANR is going to function moving forward.
Great, thank you. So then a question about kind of other potential mergers. Was there any thought about combining Game Fish and Parks, which also deals a lot with, you know, environment and natural resources, kind of ecosystems, with DENR?
I guess not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. So I had a question related to, so agriculture is a significant part of the identity of South Dakota, certainly industry and economic impact. But what about the regulation of urban areas? Will that change under the new merged department? Things like MS4 permits and things like that. And will that be any different under a Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources?
And I can speak to that. I do not anticipate any changes there unless there are changes that can make our programs, our urban programs, more effective. Certainly with merging with the Department of Ag, we have, you know, I'm excited about being able to work with them on issues more closely that relative to erosion control or agronomic issues that we have all worked in and work closely with them or worked with other entities on, but we're going to have them right here in the same department. And if anything, if any changes happen, I see making our program stronger.
Great, thank you. Related to that, another question related to urban areas. Will there be an update on newly designated MS4 communities from 2010? There has been a lot of changeovers in the state DENR MS4 coordinator position for the last decade.
I can tell you that we are looking at those and considering what we need to do to update those. You are correct. We have not updated those for a while. Those are in the process right now. So you will be hearing more about that hopefully within the next year.
Okay, great. And again, any attendees that have questions, please put those in the Q&A. Another question I had was the $319 are typically, have been typically used for agriculture focused projects. Do you see any shift in that over time as communities continue to expand?
Again, when a project gets put together to address non-point source issues, that project is reliant on a study, the monitoring that's done on a water body that may or may not be impaired. Through that study, it is identified what the sources of non-point source pollution are, and then an implementation project developed to address those sources. If those sources are agriculture, if those sources are urban related, those will all be addressed through an implementation project. And if that shows that there is something other than agriculture, then that's also involved with that. So as our urban areas grow, certainly we have new issues to look at and to address, and that certainly could be and likely will be part of that.
Great. Well, I'll wait another 10 seconds to see if anybody, all right. Okay, so got a couple more. One of DNR's missions is to, quote, protect public health and the environment. And then the question is if protecting public health will still be included as part of the new department's mission statement.
Yeah, I'll take that one. This is Brian. Certainly protecting public health will continue to be part of our priorities. We are in the process of developing a new mission statement, considering all of the responsibilities for both agencies. And our programs that protect the public health, the air program, the drinking water program, will all continue to remain in place and in force moving forward. And we certainly take that portion of our responsibility very seriously.
Thank you. Will there be any public input period, or are you working with any groups outside of the two agencies to kind of formulate new mission statements? You mentioned commodity groups with the Lieutenant Governor being a liaison. Any, I guess, partnerships that you plan to kind of help formulate the new department mission?
Right. You know, these partnerships are all very important, and we want to be able to collaborate with all of them. Right now, the process we've been working on the mission is internal. You know, we need to get ourselves organized and prepared first, but we have been and continue to communicate with you know, groups and anyone else who would like to discuss merger topics. We'd be happy to communicate with them.
Great, thanks. And could that be a follow-up with you, Brian?
You bet, please.
Okay.
Yep.
Great, thank you. Okay, here's a question based on recent integrated water quality reports. What is the leading probable source group for water quality impairments in South Dakota's rivers and streams?
You want that one, Dean?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So I think, I guess just referencing the integrated report for water quality, just what is the probable source group, or what is the probable cause for impairment for the majority of the rivers and streams in South Dakota?
I'm going to be talking off the cuff here because I haven't been visiting much with the non-point source group recently, but in the past, I think that agriculture is probably the one industry that has been the most likely to be involved in an implementation plan. Many of our impaired waters are sediment related. Many of them are related to other things that we normally think of in agriculture, but that doesn't mean that's the sole source either. So I don't want to mislead anyone on, because I'm not really sure what the leading probable source group might, what that connotates for and what that means to people. But all I can say is that we work with a source identified in an implementation project to address a specific water body.
Thanks. And those, just for the audience, those integrated reports are publicly available on the DENR website.
Yes, they are. Thank you.
If you want some light reading before bedtime, that's a good source. All right. Jay's comment, Gene's correct. Ag is the biggest problem, but only because it is the biggest industry, not because it is inherently bad, quote unquote.
Thanks, Jay. I appreciate that comment.
Right, and I certainly think we should take this opportunity as we get our ag and environmental experts in the same agency, in the same room, in the same groups to collaborate. And when we have problems, work to find solutions that work for everyone. So I think this merger helps us, complete that task. So
great. Well, thank you all so much. I know this has been a topic that a lot of people have had questions about, so really appreciate you coming to the virtual conference today and presenting. And like Brian said, if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to Brian or Gene. Again, thank you so much. Yeah, lots of good discussion and questions. So
please do. Please reach out, and thank you also for having us this morning.
thank you so much. Have a great day.